Welcome to another episode of the Victory Podcast, driven by Audi. I'm your host, Keely, Eure, joined by my co-host and former USC quarterback, Cody Kessler. Cody, normally in this setup, we're recapping a game, but it's actually a short week, so we're flipping the script. It's a preview episode, USC versus Northwestern on a Friday. I'm excited to break this one down at home this time, Cody.
Yeah, I don't know if we've actually ever done a preview episode at home. We were talking about it before we started. It might have been a couple of years ago, I think, maybe for a Christmas episode or a bowl season episode. But either way, we're still going to have some great content for you guys. We wish we were in the studio, but it has been wild this week. We got football. Keely's on top of basketball as well. So she is doing multiple different things. But with that being said, no excuses. And that's the motto this week for this USC football team. They just played in Nebraska couple days ago. They had to fly back across the country. Now you have a short week and have to get ready for a Friday night game against Northwestern, but that can't be a factor in this one. You've got to be ready to go. You got to be great with your preparation this week. You got to be great with your recovery. You only got 6 days to prepare, and normally after a Saturday game, you have Sunday, Monday to kind of recover, watch the film before you get ready for practice on Tuesday. With this type of game and a short week like this, that Sunday, that Monday, you're right back to it. So this team's got to be ready to go, but I have full faith in Lincoln Riley, the leadership on this football team, that they're going to have these guys ready to dominate at home. Everything is still in front of this USC football team. I know we keep saying that, and it's a cliche thing to say, but if they can continue to play good football, to run the table these last 4, I don't know if they can get to the Big Ten championship. They need some other things to happen, but if they go 10-2, they're going to put themselves in a great position to be ready to play for the college football playoff. But you can't focus on that right now, 1 week at a time, and that next game's Northwestern on Friday night.
To your point, Cody, we're recording this on a Tuesday morning. 12 hours ago, I was in Galen Center, and 12 hours from now, I will be back in Galen Center. So it's just that type of week. But as you said,
Hey,
Cody, no excuses this week.
USC men's basketball, though, got a dub last night. Let's go.
Got a dub.
Who does women's play tonight, Keely?
New Mexico State.
Okay.
So excited to see that as well. Yeah,
For those of you
season.
for those of you who need your basketball fix, Keely Eure is your person, both men's and women's. She's on top of all of it.
Well, no, I mean, I do interviews, but really Jordan Moore is the basketball man here at USC Athletics.
Very humble Keely. There we go.
No. Alrighty, Cody, before we jump into it, just a couple reminders. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. You can also watch the video version of the show on the USC Athletics YouTube channel. And if you want to ask questions for our preview episode, you can look at our socials, Victory Pod USC. There's either a tweet or a question box on Instagram. I put it out on Monday afternoon, so we actually got some questions, but it's not the usual cadence, so a little bit less questions this week, Cody, but that's fine. It's a short week. We'll take it. On that note, Cody, let's dive into it. The overall scouting report from Northwestern. What are you seeing from the Wildcats?
Yeah, I'm going to start with their head coach, and the Wildcats are led by David Braun, who is in his 3rd season as Northwestern's head coach. He actually started coaching back in 2008, and he's really skyrocketed up the coaching ranks as of recent years. Before taking over Northwestern, he was a defensive coordinator at North Dakota State, which is an FCS school, and then had previously not been a head coach, and then gets hired to jump up to the FBS level and take over for the Wildcats. He's made an immediate impact since he stepped foot on campus. The year before Braun got there, Northwestern was 1-11. The program was in a very bad position. And then just his first year, he led them to an 8-5 record and actually won Big Ten Coach of the Year as a rookie, which was very impressive. They took a step backwards last season, but this year they've got back on track. Northwestern's off to a 5-3 start in 2025.
All right, let's take a closer look into their offense. Who's at the helm for the Wildcats?
Yeah, this offense is led by coordinator Zach Lujan. This is his 2nd season as the Wildcats OC. Last year in Lujan's 1st season, the Wildcats struggled. That they were 130th in total offense and 128th in scoring offense in the entire country. So far this year, they've improved a little bit, but they still haven't quite found a rhythm on the offensive side of the ball. The Wildcats are 91st in total offense and 102nd in scoring offense, averaging just 22 points per game.
So on the whole, what have you seen from this offense on film?
Yeah, this is a spread offense that wants to run the football. They rely heavily on the run game on the offensive side of the ball. They're 60-40 pass to run. And really, the run game has been their only bright spot so far on offense this year. They're 118th in passing offense, but they're 29th in rushing offense. And that could pose some problems for USC. The front 7 got a little bit better last week and fixed some of those mistakes that they had against Notre Dame, but they got to continue to build off of that because this is an offense that wants to run the football. They'll use some play action off of that, but this is absolutely a run-first offense. Now, in the run game, you have to be ready for multiple looks. They do a good job when it comes to game plan to showing you a lot of different formations, a lot of different personnel groupings to run the football. They like to put their back both in offset position, either to the right or left of the quarterback. They also like to use some pistol formation as well. And we explained that with USC last week against Nebraska. Pistol formation is when the quarterback's in shotgun and then you have a running back about 2 or 3 yards directly behind the quarterback. That gives you a two-way go as a runner. That puts a little bit more stress on the defense. They like to use outside zone. They like to use inside zone. Be ready for some zone read plays this week. Not a huge zone read team. Their quarterback, Preston Stone, is not a dual threat quarterback. And I'm saying that as nice as I can. He's a pocket passer. He likes to sit back there and throw the football. I was in the same category, so no disrespect to him, but he'll read some of those zone reads. He'll try to pull it. He had a fumble actually against Nebraska when they tried to do some of those zone reads. So they stay away from it a little bit. Another thing they do, similar to what Lincoln Riley does here at USC, is they'll use their tight ends as a fullback. So they'll get in 12 personnel, even some 13 personnel, and we'll talk about that in a second, but put their tight ends at that fullback position, have the running back in pistol, and run some power run game right at you. They're going to line up and dare you to stop it. Lujan does a good job, too, of being creative with their formations and breaking tendencies, because normally when you see the run game, normally when you have an offense, you always want to look for a tendency when you're on the opposite side of the ball. If the running back's on the right, okay, we know 95% of the time they're running to the left. When they get the pistol, when they get to 12 personnel, when they do different things, normally it's run right or it's inside zone, whatever it may be. That's why you have, QCs and all these assistant coaches scouting what their percentages are. When you watch film, Lujan does a really good job of breaking those tendencies. It's tough to get a beat on what he's doing when it comes to the run game. So Danton Lynn and this defense has to be ready all game long. Now, off of the run game, where they excel when it comes to throwing the football. Like I mentioned, they're 118th in passing offense, but where they have seen some success is when they can use play action, especially when they get in their pistol formations. You're going to see Stone line up in shotgun. You're going to have a running back right behind him. He's going to turn around and put his back to the defense, hide the football, sell that run fake, because you've seen it 3 or 4 times, and he wants those linebackers, those safeties, those DBs to start to come up a little bit, try to stop the run, and then they want to throw off of that, try to find some windows behind the defense. Because of how much success they have running the football, it makes it a lot easier for them to be effective with play action pass, multiple runs in a row. They'll go 3 or 4 runs in a row, and then when you start committing to the run, then they're going to go play action off of that. So you have to anticipate run when you're playing this defense or playing this offense, but you have to be ready to react to pass. So you can't overcommit. Take your first step forward if I'm the linebacker, if I'm the defensive line, get in my gap, be ready to stop the run. As soon as you see that ball fake, be ready to get back and drop into your zone area and play some coverage on the back end. Like I already mentioned, when it comes to personnel groupings, you have to be ready for some 12 personnel and some 13 personnel. What I mean by that was when I use the number system, the first number is always the amount of running backs. The second number is always the amount of tight ends. And then you fill the rest in with wide receivers to equal 5. So they have, when I say 12, 1 running back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, 13 personnel, something we haven't seen a lot this year, but because they are a run heavy team, they like to line up and bring in some extra bodies, bring in some more size, and run the football right at you. So 13 personnel is 1 running back, 3 tight ends, and 1 wide receiver. We have to be ready to stop that, especially on short yardage situations. They have hit some big home run plays off of that. They use it on 3rd and 2 against Nebraska. They get into 13 personnel. Nebraska loads the box. It's a got to have it situation. They're trying to stop the run, and then Northwestern breaks it outside and goes for 56 yards and a touchdown. They are very effective when they use these 12 and 13 personnel groupings. Again, it's a spread offense. They're a majority of the time they're out of shotgun. They're going to throw it a little bit off of that, but they're primarily a run team. Even though they're in shotgun, they'll still get into these big personnel groupings. They're going to run it right at you too. This is a huge week. We talked about USC being physical, showing that physicality, being able to dominate in the trenches, playing physical Big Ten type of defense like we know that they're capable of, something we struggled a little bit with against Notre Dame, something we did great against Michigan, just have lacked a little bit when it comes to being consistent. This is a week that we can't slack off. You have to be very physical at the point of attack, discipline with your gap integrity, because if you're not, especially when they bring these big bodies in, they're going to bust some big time plays in the run game and they're going to take it to the house.
Well, I have multiple questions for you off of that, Cody. One, how do you defend against 3 tight ends? I feel like that's, you kind of go with the jumbo set, or you go with your big boy set to kind of offset how big the tight ends are. And then 2, I feel like USC's defense in those games that you've mentioned have had success when they sell out to stop one specific aspect of the game, meaning sell out to stop the run if they are heavy. Do you anticipate Coach Lynn doing that in this game?
Yeah, well, I'll start with this. When you have 3 tight ends in, you're not going to see a lot of nickel this week from USC's defense. You're going to bring in Jaden Walker. You're going to bring in some of these bigger linebackers. You might even see a couple extra defensive linemen come into the game when you get in those short yardage and goal line situations where we have maybe 5 defensive linemen and 2 linebackers. You get a 5-2 type defense, and then you fill the rest in with DBs. So I would anticipate some of that this week. And to your second point, Keely, I know that you play on the defensive side of the ball. You've got to anticipate both. You want to stop the run, you want to stop the pass, you want to play complementary defense. For me this week, and something that I wish we would have done a little bit more against Notre Dame. For me this week, let's sell out to stop the run. Let's really load the box. Let's play physical. Let's use some of our big packages on the defensive side of the ball and force quarterback Preston Stone to have to beat us with his right arm. He's a decent quarterback. He can do some things well. No disrespect to him, but this offense, it relies heavily on the run game. Their success every week is either running the football well or they're not running the football well. They'll throw a little bit off of that to keep you honest, but I really would like to see this defense sell out, stop the run, and then try to force them to beat us on the outside with some of their receivers and some of their playmakers.
To that point, though, Cody, when they are trying to be balanced and throw the ball, what do you see in that sense?
Yeah, when it comes to their pass game, it's a lot of short and intermediate throws, a lot of screens as well. They like to get the ball out of their quarterback's hand quickly. Northwestern's only averaging 6.3 yards per attempt this year, which is 111th in college football as a defensive back. You can be a little bit more aggressive this week. You can sit in your stance before you start backpedaling, be ready for some of those hitches, some slants, some quick throws. Like I mentioned, some of those screen games, some RPOs where they kick it out to the receiver in bunch formations. They've only given up 10 sacks so far this year as well. And I know that we want this pass rush, this front seven to get home and get some more sacks in the backfield. But the reason they've only given up 10 sacks is they have a solid offensive line, but the ball's coming out. They want to frustrate your pass rush. They want you to try to pin your ears back, get after the quarterback, and before you can get home, they're one step ball out. They're 3 steps ball out. So you have to be ready to get your hands up this week if I'm the defensive line. You might not get a lot of sacks, but now you can anticipate the ball coming out quick. 1, 2, 3, hands up, get some tip balls and let some players in the back end maybe get an interception or make some plays on it. But the other thing, because the ball comes out quick and they hit it against Northwestern, or I'm sorry, they hit it against Nebraska early in that game. If I'm a DB, I know you want to be aggressive and jump some of these routes, but you have to make sure the ball's coming out because they like to use some of those double moves. They'll run slant and goes. They'll run hitches and goes to where they run a slant, run a hitch over and over. And then that fourth or fifth time, they're going to pump the slant, pump the hitch, and then try to get over the top. And if you're getting too aggressive and you fall asleep as a DB, you're going to jump that. And there's big plays to be made in the back end. So we've got to be disciplined this week. Expect the ball to come out, but don't fall asleep when it comes to the double moves. Now, when it comes to the RPO game, like I just mentioned, it's not a lot of zone read plays. It's not Stone reading that defensive end like we see with Jade Mayava, like he did really well against Nebraska, to where they're leaving an unblocked player on the backside. He can either give it or pull it and take off and run around the edge. They do have that within their system, but what they like to do is give him secondary reads in the RPO game. Read a box count, read a linebacker, read safety rotation. And what I mean by that is they'll get in with 5 offensive linemen to block. If you have a 5-man box, we know we have a numbers advantage. We're going to give it. If you start creeping down with that nickel defender, if you walk a safety into the box and now we have a bunch or a 2 receiver side on the outside and you don't have enough guys to cover outside, I'm going to fake the RPO and I'm going to kick it out. So basically he's reading a box count. He's reading leverage with an outside linebacker. It's more so secondary reads than it is reading a defensive end. Still have to be ready for that. Luan does a good job of creating some advantages when it comes to the RPO game. Another thing that you have to be ready for, this is a team that does a good job with pre-snap motion, and it's very similar to USC's pre-snap motion. It's a lot of tight end motions coming across formations, try to get the defense to adjust at the last second. They're going to hit it on the run like we do with Walker Lyons and Lake McCree, hand it off and let the tight end block the backside in, or they're going to fake it, use some play action, let them bluff that backside in and then slip out into the flat. They'll hit some of their motions on the run too at their receivers to create some leverage advantages in the pass game. Not a ton of pre-snap motion, but they do it so that they can create an advantage, and they want to force you to try to make adjustments right before the ball snap and put you in bad positions on the defensive side of the ball. And then the last thing, I have to mention this, spread offense. 99% of the time they're going to be in shotgun, but they do have some under center looks. Not quite what Nebraska did a week ago with that hybrid spread pro style type offense. But when they get in those short yardage situations, when they get down by the goal line, they have shown with those 12 and 13 personnel groupings to get under center, to have some of those toss plays, to have some of those, straight downhill duo runs, those power runs right at you in short yardage situations. So you got to be ready for that this week as well.
Cody, I have to give you credit because I feel like you're doing preview episode on hard mode right now, because not only did USC just play Nebraska, Northwestern just played Nebraska. So now you're previewing Northwestern after Nebraska. There's a lot of just things you could get wrong, and so far you're killing it.
You just nailed it right there too. At Northwestern, Nebraska, Northwestern. It was tough when I was doing my film study last night and typing in my notes. I can't tell you how many times I started typing Nebraska for Northwestern, or Northwestern did, X, Y, and Z against Nebraska, and I kept getting them flipped back and forth. But the thing that helps, Nebraska's red, And then, well, actually, they were all black last week, and
Yeah, good
Northwestern's
point.
black and purple. So that didn't make it easier as well. But either way, yeah, we're playing Northwestern this week. We got to win against Nebraska. Big Ten football either way. Nameless, faceless opponent. Let's line it up and let's roll.
Well, on that note, Cody, let's take a deeper look at the Wildcats offense. Who are their key players?
Yeah, I'm going to start with their quarterback, Preston Stone. We've already mentioned him a couple times throughout this preview episode, but he's a senior transfer from SMU. He's been up and down this year on the offensive side of the ball for the Wildcats. 58% completion percentage. He struggled with some of his accuracy, 1,300 passing yards. He also has 10 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. He will give you opportunities to make some plays on the football. This is a big week for USC secondary. Like I mentioned, be aggressive. Don't overcommit. Be ready for the double moves, but you will get opportunities to get some takeaways and get some interceptions in the back end. You got to take advantage when you do have those opportunities. Now, the next player, and I mentioned this is a run first type of offense. This is my red dot player of the week on the offensive side of the ball. My first one, we actually have one more, so stay tuned. But the running back that I'm giving the red dot to is Caleb Kamalafe. This offense runs primarily through him. He is their lead back. He's the guy that they want to get the ball to in the run game. He can run through you. He can run around you. He's had a couple plays too where he can break it on some big time runs. 124 carries this year, 608 yards, and 7 touchdowns. USC's defense has to be ready to stop Kamalafe in this game. And normally, when you have a good rushing attack, that's because you have a good 1-2 punch at the running back position. The other guy that's involved in the run game is Joseph Hyman II. 81 carries, 400 yards. He's more of an athletic type running back. He has 19 receptions for 120 yards out of the backfield. Expect him on some of those obvious passing situations to be a target for Stone on some of those swing routes, those angle routes, to line him up too and let him run some wide receiver routes as well. So you got to be ready for both these guys. Now, I know this is a run first offense and they're 118th when it comes to passing offense, but I actually have another red dot player this week, and I'm giving it to Northwestern's wide receiver, Griffin Wilde. He's a 6'2" junior transfer from South Dakota State. He is basically their entire pass game when they want to throw the football. He's a really good football player. And the reason that he's having so much success is because, like I mentioned, the South Dakota State transfer, Northwestern offensive coordinator Zach Lujan came over from South Dakota State. So they spent a year together in the same offense when he was calling plays. So he knows how to use Wilde. He understands what his strengths are, what his weaknesses are. And he's been a plug and play type player out of the transfer portal for this Northwestern offense. 39 receptions, 570 yards receiving, and 4 touchdowns. He has 24 more catches than the next closest receiver. Whoever's covering this game, I expect it to most likely be DeCarlos Nicholson. Who knows, though? Marcellus Williams is starting to show some flashes as well. But whoever's covering him this game, they have to be ready to stop Wilde all game long.
Alrighty, Cody, I want to transition us over to the defensive preview. Before we do, just want to give thanks to Audi. What you expect from an SUV is a range of sizes to fit your lifestyle. Expectations matter, but exceeding them matters more. The Audi family of SUVs, progress you can feel. Now, looking at this defense as a whole, Cody, who is at the helm?
Yeah, this defense is led by coordinator and Northwestern legend Tim McGargle. McGargle is Northwestern's all-time leading tackler, and he's also third all-time in the history of NCAA football with 545 career tackles. McGargle is in his second season with the Wildcats, and he has his defense playing some really solid football this year. They're 19th in total defense, and they're 13th in scoring defense, only giving up 16 points per game through 8 weeks.
An impressive record, so I want to see what this defense is like. What have you seen from the film, Cody?
Yeah, this is a 4-2-5 defense, meaning they have 4 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 5 defensive backs. That fifth DB is that nickel linebacker. A 4-2-5 is also known as a nickel defense. And I expect them to stay in this defense for the majority of the game, especially with USC's air raid offense. Even when we get to 12 personnel, when we go 1 running back, 2 tight ends with Walker Lyons and Lake McCree, I wouldn't be surprised if Northwestern still stays in this nickel defense for the majority of this game. They do a good job of playing complementary defense. They're 13th in the country in passing defense, and they're 57th in rushing defense. Now, I know that number is a little bit higher than their passing statistics, but I don't mind that because of the conference that they play in. They're in the Big Ten Conference. This is a run-heavy conference. You
Good
expect that
point.
number to be a little bit higher, but the number that sticks out to me is the fact that they're 13th in passing defense. Why is that important this week? Well, last week, USC went on the road at Nebraska against the number 2 passing defense in the country, and we struggled. We didn't look like our normal offense. We couldn't get anything going. Jaden Mayava had an off night with his arm. He made up for it with his legs and ran the football a little bit, but we can't have that happen again this week. We have to play complementary football. We can't be one-dimensional, because if you're one-dimensional, this Northwestern defense is going to take advantage of that. We've got to be able to run. We've got to be able to pass. And Jaden Mayava also has to use his legs again this week and be a factor in the run game. Now, when you watch Northwestern on film, this is, I don't want to say vanilla, but this is a defense that basically lines up and plays football. That they're going to line up. They don't do a ton of pre-snap disguise. They don't do a ton of pre-snap movement. They don't do a ton of show one look and then get into another look. They're going to line up, say this is what we're doing. We have the athletes and the players on this side of the ball to play good defense. Try to beat us. We're going to dare you to try to come out and run the football at will, to try to throw it all over the field. We're going to line up and play and see if your 11 is better than our 11. And they do a good job of it. What's that allow them to do, though? That eliminates confusion. It allows them to play fast. It allows them to play confident. There's not a ton of pre-snap communication to where guys aren't quite sure the call. They aren't quite sure the adjustments. They do a really good job, like I mentioned, of lining up, trusting McGargle, and playing some tough physical defense. Now, USC could take advantage of this week, though, by doing some pre-snap motion, by getting in different personnel groupings, by showing them the same look multiple times and then running different plays off of that, forcing them now to have to communicate. That means that we dictate what they do instead of them dictating what we do. It's going to be a good cat and mouse game this week between Lincoln Riley and Tim McGargle, and I'm excited to watch it. When it comes to their pressure packages or their blitz packages, they are hit or miss right now, depending on what game you're watching. And what I mean by that is I went and watched the Nebraska game from start to finish. Not a ton of pressure looks, not a ton of blitz packages in that game. Now, Nebraska has had a lot more success throwing the football than they have running the ball this year. So that might have played a little bit of a factor in that, as McGargle wanted to sit back and play coverage and see if Nebraska could beat them on the ground game, which they did. Emmett
Yeah.
Johnson had a huge game
Yeah.
there and had some big time plays on the ground. But then against Penn State, a team that is really good at running the football, they started to bring a lot more pressure in that game, and they brought double linebacker pressure, a lot of safety pressure. They brought some corner blitz packages as well. So they have all of it in their game plan. It just depends on the opponent that they're playing. I am very curious to see what McGargle does this week against USC's offense, because although we struggled to throw the football last week, that is still where this offense excels. That's what they're known for. Throwing the ball to Mekhi Lemon, getting Jacoby Lane involved, getting our tight ends involved, Tanuk Hines, Jaden Richardson, some of these other guys making some big time plays. And then obviously Jade Mayava, regardless of what happened last week, is still one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. I'm curious to see if McGargle wants to sit back and play coverage or try to get some pressure on King Miller in this run game and try to play in the backfield. It'll be interesting to see what happens. Another factor in that is USC's offensive line has been really good this year in pass protection. So if you start bringing these blitz looks and USC's picking them up with Elijah Page back, with some of these other guys back, and they start picking up these pressures, you are going to be depleted in the back end, and that makes my office job a lot easier. Again, another cat and mouse game this week with Lincoln Riley and McGargle. I'm so excited to watch it. Now, I will say this, though. Even in the Nebraska game, when they didn't bring a ton of pressure, they are still very aggressive with their linebackers and their safeties in the run game. What I mean by that is, as soon as they start to see the handoff, as soon as they start to see the quarterback give, those linebackers, that nickel defender who's really tight to the line of scrimmage, they're triggering. The safeties are also triggering with some of their too high coverage looks, and they like to play them down in the box. One of their safeties is their leading tackler. So even if they're not blitzing, you still have to be ready as an offensive line. When you hand the ball off, you have to, if you have a double team, if you're pulling around, be ready for those linebackers to be in that gap immediately. You have to be ready to block. If you miss them, they're going to get a lot of tackles for loss. So it's going to be a great matchup going back and forth. I'm excited. Like I mentioned, McGargle versus Lincoln Riley. You've got one of the best linebackers in the history of college football, now defensive coordinator, going up against one of the best offensive minds in football in Lincoln Riley. And I cannot wait to watch them go head to head on Friday night.
You're doing that thing again. You get me excited for a matchup, this time a Friday night matchup. Now, you mentioned Mayava's mindset, and we actually had a question about that from Chris. He says, my question as a QB, how do you reset your mind and get overthrowing a pick during a game? What were your methods, Cody?
Yeah, that's a great question. And when it comes to quarterback, obviously everyone is focused on the arm talent and the arm strength and the accuracy and the ability to scramble and make plays with your legs and how athletic are they. But to me, the first thing that I look at outside of film when I'm looking at a quarterback is what's between the ears. How well do they process? How well can they read defenses? And more importantly, how well are they at flushing bad plays and also flushing good plays? Because when you throw an interception, obviously you're going to get down on yourself. You're going to run to the sideline. You're going to watch the tablet, but you have to be able to put that behind you immediately, because that very next drive is coming quickly and your offense needs you to go out there and perform well. The other side of that, whenever you throw a touchdown as well or have a big time play, you can celebrate in the end zone. You can chest bump. You can do all that. By the time you run back to the sideline and watch it on the tablet before that next series happens, you've got to flush that as well. As a quarterback, you have to stay even when it comes to your emotions. You can't get too high. You can't get too low. It's so important as a leader to be able to stay right. We like to call it the zone. Stay right in that zone. Stay right in the middle, right, throughout the entire game. Once it's over, then you can celebrate. Then you can get excited, or you can go to the film room and correct some of the things that you need to correct. But when it's in real time throughout the game, whether it's your best game ever or it's the worst performance you've ever had, you have to stay level-headed throughout the entirety of the game.
Alrighty, Cody, before we move into personnel, I know you have a couple more points about this defense. What else are you seeing?
Yeah, and this next note right here is probably my most important note when it comes to the scouting report for this Northwestern defense. This is a too high defense. They want to play two high safeties the majority of the game. The reason they do that is because they want to keep everything in front of them. They don't want to give up those big time plays over the top, and they want to force your offense to have to put together long drives. They want to see if you're patient enough to take underneath throws, to take some short runs, to take the hitches and the slants, and put together 10 to 12 play drives and try not to make a mistake. Where they really excel is when you start trying to force the ball down the field, when you start trying to throw some go routes, some deep posts into two high looks, into double or triple coverage, and then they have some advantage plays off of that. This is a huge week for Jade Mayava to just understand what they're doing coverage wise and know that I'm just going to take a hitch, take an 8 yard reception, take a 10 yard reception, maybe over the middle, attack the middle of this defense a little bit in those short and intermediate routes. But it's okay to just take short throws down the field. And then if a big play presents itself, you can take advantage of that because I know Lincoln Riley can dial up some of these looks and take advantage of whatever coverage they're in. But Northwestern does a good job. That's why they're 13th in the country in pass defense is they play two high safeties and they keep everything in front of them. Now, although they are going to play two high safeties for the majority of the game, or at least start in two high looks almost every time you come out in pre-snap. That will change at times in post-snap. They're going to play different varieties of two high, but they'll also rotate a safety down in the box at the snap and play some one high looks as well. But just when I come out as a quarterback, the first thing you look at is the safeties. What are they playing? Expect two high, and then if they do something post-snap, you adjust off of that. Now, with everything we just talked about, throw it all out the window because we're focusing now on third down. And I say this every week,
You do
but when it
indeed.
comes to football, when it comes to defense, there's always a game within a game, and third down is completely different than what defenses do with their base down looks. That's the same this week for Northwestern. Be ready for more pressure. It becomes a lot more consistent. Be ready for some of those exotic looks and different coverages. They like to disguise what they do pre snap and then change it what they do post snap. Not quite as much confusion, not quite as many exotic looks as Danton Lynn does here at USC. They will show you some double A gap. They will walk up some linebackers in different spots, try to overload one side and get you to go, one way with the protection, then bring the pressure the other way. But it's not as consistent as what Danton Lynn does here at USC. But this is still a big week for Jade Mayava to be locked in with his preparation, study these third down looks, study each package from 3rd and 1 to 3, 3rd and 4 to 6, 3rd and 7 to 9, 3rd and 10 plus. Every single category, they do something different. So you've got to know, what the down and distance is and what their tendencies are on the defensive side of the ball to go out there and be effective. Because if you can pick up some of these pressure looks, there are big plays to be made in the back end, and that's where you can hurt the secondary for Northwestern. So it's going to be a great week. I'm excited for it. Jade Mayava and his center need to be on the same page. A big week for the offensive line. Let's get the playmakers going on the outside as well. And let's get back to USC being two-dimensional on the offensive side of the ball Friday night.
Now, I know you kind of mentioned this when you answered Chris's question, but as a quarterback and you have an off night in an away stadium, how nice is it to come home to your home stadium and get that familiar environment again?
Yeah, it is. It's really nice being at home. Obviously, it's tough with the crowd noise and that atmosphere. And I got to give credit to Nebraska. We talked about it briefly on the recap episode, but they do a great job of creating that 12th man atmosphere. It really is a tough thing as a quarterback to go in there and, even the headset. It's tough to hear on a headset with a microphone that's about 1 inch away from your ear. And then on top of that, now you have to relay the message to your linemen, to your receivers. There's a lot of signaling involved, but it's just so tough because it creates difficulties in your pre-snap operation. Whereas at home, it's easy. I can hear Lincoln Riley from the sideline basically telling me what to do, even when the headset cuts off. I can talk to my offensive lineman in person. I can echo it out to the receivers. When you're on the road, it's a lot more difficult. So it's going to be nice for Jaden to get back home, to put that game behind them. It's even better that it's a short week. I know it's tough when it comes to scheduling and recovery, but now that game happened and it was so quick of a turnaround. It's already behind them. We're on to the next week. Let's get that behind us. Let's go to the Coliseum on Friday. Let's create a great atmosphere. The fans, if you're going to this game, let's be loud. Let's support this team. Let's make it difficult on Preston Stone and their offense when they have the football. But overall, I'm ready to see Jaden get back on track, and I think he's going to do that in the Coliseum on Friday.
Alrighty, well, let's look into the personnel. Who should we be looking for on defense on Friday?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the secondary for Northwestern. And the first player that USC needs to be ready for is safety Robert Fitzgerald, 6 foot, 210-pound junior. He leads the team with 69 tackles. He's very aggressive from that safety position. Like I mentioned, this is a too high covered team, but these safeties do a great job of triggering in the run game. As soon as they see you hand the ball off, as soon as they read their keys and see the guard or the tackle work up to block at the second level, they're attacking downhill. You've got to be ready for Fitzgerald both in the run game and in the pass game. Their other secondary player is Braden Turner. He plays at their nickel linebacker position. He is tight to the line of scrimmage. He's involved in the run game. He'll drop into coverage in the pass game. They'll send him on some pressure looks too and try to get after the quarterback. He has 28 tackles so far this year. He also has 2 forced fumbles. So if I'm a ball carrier this week for USC, if I'm quarterback Jane Mayava, if I'm the running back, if I'm receivers going over the middle, anytime you get around Turner and you get in traffic, make sure you have 2 hands on the football. Now, where this defense really excels is in the middle of their defense. Northwestern has 2 very talented linebackers. The first one is 6'1", 230-pound junior, Braden Bruss. He has 37 tackles so far this year and is a great complement to this next player that I'm going to talk about. But the second linebacker that USC needs to be ready for, and my first red dot player of the week on defense, is linebacker Mac Uline. He has 58 tackles, 1 forced fumble, and 4 interceptions already at the linebacker
Yeah.
position.
Wow.
Western only has 5 interceptions. Keely as a team, he has 4 of them. And normally you see that from a corner, a safety, even a
Yeah.
nickel linebacker. But the fact that their linebacker, Mac Uline, has 4 of those interceptions, he's playing some really good football this year. Why does he have so many interceptions, though? And what does this mean for Jaden Mayava? He is really good at playing the middle of the field, but he's also really good at baiting some of those RPO throws to where you start to hand it off. It looks like he's selling in the run game, and then he reacts and gets underneath a slant throw or a crosser, or he'll jump in front of a middle throw trying to get it to your tight ends. You have to be pinpoint with your accuracy this week if I'm Jaden Mayava when I'm attacking the middle of the field, both in the short game and trying to get the ball over the top of these linebackers, because U-line will make you pay if you're not. And then when it comes to Northwestern's defensive line, there's 2 guys that USC's O-line needs to be ready for. The first one is defensive end Michael Kilbane, 6'5", 275-pound junior. He has 25 tackles and 2.5 sacks so far this year. And then the next guy is my second red dot player of the week for this Northwestern defense, defensive end Aiden Hubbard, 6'4", 255-pound senior leader on the defensive side of the ball. This kid has an extremely high motor. He is very disruptive. He can change your entire game plan or disrupt your entire game plan on the offensive side of the ball if you don't have a great plan for him this week. I expect Lincoln Riley to have some chips with our running backs to help out with our tight ends and give him a chip block before they get out on their routes all game long, because when it comes to the pass game, if you put him one-on-one, he can make some big time plays in the backfield. I really like the matchup though with Elijah Page and Hubbard going back and forth. Even Taunu on the right side, I still feel comfortable with him as well, but they've got to bring their A game this week against Hubbard. 22 tackles so far this year, and he leads the team with 3.5 sacks.
On the whole, how are you feeling about this matchup for USC?
Yeah, I'm feeling really confident. I know that last week wasn't USC's best performance, but they found a way to win that game. And I said it on the recap episode, I will take an ugly win over a pretty loss any day of the week. The fact they went into that environment, found a way to get the job done when your quarterback's not at his best, when your offense isn't at their best. King Miller played some good football. And then defensively, were better against the run game, but overall they stepped up in the second half. They found a different way to win. And that's kind of been the theme this year for USC. Sometimes it's Mayava's arm. Sometimes it's the run game. Sometimes it's the defensive line. Sometimes it's a secondary. Bishop Fitzgerald making some plays on the football like he did against Purdue. You never know what's going to happen, but they're showing you that they can find ways to win regardless of what happens throughout the game. So I feel really good going into this one. I feel confident that they're going to find a way to get the job done on Friday. I will say something interesting though. I mentioned no excuses, and there can't be, but we can talk about it on this show, is they have to be perfect this week in their prep. After Northwestern played Nebraska, they had a bye last week. They've had 14 days to prepare for USC. USC played in Nebraska, flew back home, got home late, and they only have 5.5, 6 days to prepare for Northwestern.
It's wild
It
to
is
me.
going to be a tough challenge, but
Yeah.
it doesn't matter, because looking back at the win-loss record, Keely, we're not going to say, oh, asterisks, they had 14 days, we had 6.
Yeah.
They don't care about that. What matters is, did you do enough to win the football game? So USC has to be perfect this week. I've always talked highly about Lincoln Riley and his leadership, the coaching staff that they have, and then obviously the leaders on this football team. So I have no doubt they'll have their guys ready to go, but it's going to be a tough challenge on Friday night.
Alrighty, Cody, we have a couple questions to get to. Before we do, just want to give a thanks to Ralph's. At Ralph's, you get high quality and low prices, so you never have to compromise your budget. Save on thousands of items throughout the store. Ralph's, fresh for everyone. Our first question comes from Louie, who said, great road win last week, but did Nebraska show the blueprint on how to slow down the SC passing attack, or was it just a case of not executing?
Yeah, that's a good question, Louis. I think it's a combination of both things. We talked about in the preview episode. Nebraska runs a 3-3-5 defense. When you have a 3-3-5, they specialize in stopping the pass. So it wasn't just USC that has struggled to throw the football against that defense. It's really everyone they've played. They're number 2 in passing defense in the country for a reason, because they have a great game plan on the back end. They drop almost 7 or 8 guys into coverage every time that you drop back on the offensive side of the ball. It's tough to find some success through the air going up against that defense. And then the other side of the ball, when it comes to USC's execution, there were times that we had big plays to be made down the field. Jay Maava was just off with his accuracy. So you can't have that type of performance as a quarterback, especially when it comes to throwing the football. I know he made up for it with his legs and had some big time plays on the ground, and he has to keep that up. That's another big note in this game. He needs to continue to be a factor in the run game. But when your accuracy's off against that good of a defense, it's tough to find any success through the air.
Well, that's an excellent transition to our next question. Turtle says, I know you've mentioned it before, but what is the point of not having Maava run the ball, or why is he hesitant to?
Yeah, I'll say this. When it comes to the zone read type of plays where you're reading that defensive end, I thought he's been really good with his decision making. There's a couple times here and there on film where he maybe could have pulled it early on this year, but you can't just pull the football because you want to run it if the defensive end comes upfield. If he crashes down, now you can pull it and run, be ready for a scraping linebacker over the top as a secondary player. But if that defensive end's coming upfield over and over and they're responsible for the quarterback pull, you just got to give it and make the right decision. That's how you can be a factor in the run game. But where I wanted to see him be more involved with his legs was when the play broke down. When guys weren't there initially, when you get through your, first, second, and third read and no one's open, instead of scrambling or running around or throwing it away, take off and get some positive yards. Get 4 or 5 yards. Pick up a first down on third down. Keep the drive alive. Get some positive plays. Protect yourself and get down. But that's where he could become more of a factor in the run game. And that's exactly what he did on Saturday against Nebraska. And that was great to see. And maybe this was what he needed to do. Maybe this was, having a bad game when it came to throwing the football, forced him to be a little bit more effective as a runner. Maybe that's something that's going to springboard him forward now throughout the rest of the year, to where he goes, okay, now I've seen myself do it. I've got some more confidence. I'm going to make it a point of emphasis to run the football a little bit more. And I promise you, Coach Riley's probably telling him the same thing after that performance on Saturday.
Our final question comes from Joey, who says, question for Keely, how does seating on the team plane work? Is there food on board? There is so much food on board. Too much food, I will say. Jordan Moore always makes the joke that they're passing around thousands and thousands of calories, and makes you think that you earned those calories, like you played for several hours. But us in the back, the support staff members, have to realize we did not just run for 5 hours, So that is one thing. There is a ton of food. How the seating works is usually starters in the front, coaches in the first kind of middle-ish, and then the rest of the travel team, and then support staff in the back. What's fascinating is the radio crew, if you will, which is like Sean Cody, Jordan Moore, producer Gia, we're kind of in the back, even Pete Arbogast. And if I'm ever near Sean Cody, that means that he gets dibs on wherever I'm sitting if it's a better seat. For example, coming back from Nebraska, I get to the back and Sean goes, what aisle are you? And I said, oh, I'm 52A. And he was like, you're 52C now. And I was like, oh, am I? Because he needs the leg room. He's a big boy. He needs it. So I'm just like, yes, whatever you say, I'll go tuck in the corner and get my seat, because you have to respect your elders in that sense, Cody.
It's also respect your elders, but it's also respect your offense and defensive linemen, because I lived that life as well. So anytime, especially if you're not a starter, when I was playing, early on in my career when Matt Barkley was there, if you got a aisle seat, if you got a better seat and an offensive lineman or defensive lineman around you wanted that, as a quarterback, you got to change. You got to give him that spot. So I'm glad that still carries on long after Sean Cody's done playing football.
It does.
But yeah, hey, you got to support the big boys up front, and that's no difference, especially after you retire.
He also struggles food wise. He doesn't want to get food, and then he turns around to either me or Gia and just looks at give me your food bag. I want a snack. He's the big toddler on the plane, and Gia and I, mainly Gia, tries to babysit him on the way back.
Well, you know what? We got to get shout out Sean Cody too, man. I know
he's
you guys
the
have
best.
seen him on everything. We got to get him on a podcast episode in the offseason. We got to get some stories from his days playing under Pete Carroll, obviously what he's doing nowadays. One of the best personalities at USC right now. So shout out Sean. We got to get him on the show sometime.
For sure. A good human too. We love people like that.
Yeah.
All righty, Cody, take us home. Time to wrap it up. A home preview pod, I think, for the first time in Victory Pod history. Take us home, Cody.
Yeah, there's nothing else left to be said. It's time to go. I know it's only Tuesday, but I feel like it's Friday and we're 2 hours from kickoff right now. I'm ready to throw the helmet on and put the jersey on, go get my pads out of the closet right now and line up and get ready to go. But either way, no excuses. Short week, regardless of what's happening. You got to go out there. You got to execute. You got to dominate this football game. I want to be paying close attention to the trenches this week. USC's offensive line, USC's defensive line. You win and lose by those big boys up front. And I really like our chances this week. Fight on. If you're going to this game, be loud. Be involved, help this defense out, create some problems for Northwestern, especially when they have the football, and let's get a dub at the Coliseum on Friday.
Alrighty, you heard the man. Excited to get back into the Coliseum finally on Friday. Tailgate show, Cody, by the way, 4 p.m., I believe, yes?
4 p.m. start at the tailgate show. Tune in, YouTube, wherever you want to watch, wherever you get all your. Well, I think it's just YouTube, actually. It's not quite
YouTube,
a podcast,
radio,
but
ESPN LA.
make sure, YouTube, radio, ESPN LA, wherever you watch it, make sure you tune in. We got some good stuff this week. It's me, Sean Cody, Sua Cravens, and then Jordan Moore. And then Keely gets a couple segments here. The real star of the show. We'll pop in whenever she graces us with her presence.
No, it's a cut to me, and I usually am just snarky, especially towards
Yeah.
Sua. But you guys clown me all the time.
We all, that's what makes it fun.
No, I know.
But Keely has to do the injury report basically in real time as players are running out.
It's the worst timing.
Segment. And it's almost impossible, especially for the questionable players in the game.
I know. I'm like literally, I have my glasses on. I'm like trying to see, like, is this person dressed? Or are they doing stuff? So it's a crazy time, but it's fun time. So make sure you tune in. Alrighty, that's going to wrap it up for our preview episode. That's Cody. I'm Keely. We'll see y'all next time.